long-range warfare? Is it good or is it bad? This is exactly the question we're going to be answering today. Now, of course, this is a very controversial talent as it offers longer range, but it nerfs some of the damage of your archer marches. So today I've gone through a lot of testing, 1v1s, as well as are the artifact working, are the pets working, are the rage kill of the heroes working, as well as explaining exactly the kind of debuff and buff that you gain from this. Is it physical attack, base attack, attack simply? It's quite a confusion thing, and there is a lot of things that are not as they seem. So today we'll go right into multiple reports as well as footage of me testing it with my friend Gamble, who has basically done all of the tests before getting the talents, and then we did the exact same test with him getting the talents right away, so we can see exactly what changed from one to the other. Now, if you look into your city right here and you go into your ballista factory or whatever unit you're having, you can see at the T5 that this is, for example, my physical attack and the base. Now here you can see on the screen, this is Gamble's physical attack stat, basically before and after taking the talent. And as you can see, there is absolutely no change. So this is because when you look at the talent here itself, it says that when they are in the field, they will have 15% less base physical attack. So you won't see it in your city, which is normal. Next, the other thing we want to test out is, are your pets working? Same as your heroes. So as you can see, the rage kill of your pet has an attack range of medium, and this is the same for multiple of the pets that are meant to go on the archers, such as the Night Rock, which is principally the best pet for Syndrian Freygar, which is obviously going to be what we care about the most. But as you can see, the attack range here is medium, and if I come right here where Syndrian himself is, he also has an attack range of medium. This is the same for a hero like Freygar, and basically every archer or hero in the game has attack range medium. That is their regular range and the range of the marksman unit in this game. Now, if we take a look at this report right here, this is basically just me with infantry and him with Syndrian Freygar, just to test out exactly if it does work or not. Now, looking at the battle log, it is actually pretty obvious that it does work. So first you have here the first skill, which is Syndrian. He is going to cast his Green Feather, which is his rage kill. Now this is giving him a buff, which is obviously happening and is working as intended. Now if we look a little bit lower here, this is Freygar using her own rage kill, Squall Shot. Now this is something that does damage. It says attack range medium, 600 damage, and you can see right here that she does gain the normal attack focus effect, as well as my Madeline lost 1700 unit. So the damage, even though it says medium, did work. So this is what we expected. It is working as intended. The archers are gaining extra range as much as the marksmen. The heroes are also getting that range for their skill, even though it does say medium. And the last thing is the war pet. You can see right here, the Night Rock is casting Ravage, which is also medium, and it is going to give him a buff, of course, which is going to be normal attack crit rate bonus. And if we look basically 2 turns later, the Ravage is proccing right here from a crit that Syndrian did. And my Madeline lost 141 units from the Ravage itself, which is pretty much straightforward, even though it says medium. Both affect the crit as well as the damage that it does are applying properly. So this is no surprise here. We can see that everything is working as intended. Now, the other thing we wanted to test is artifacts. So Gold Crest specifically being one of the best artifacts in the game, as well as, for example, something like Shadow Blades. They all have basically a range that we know is the same as the archers. It is a medium range, though it doesn't say on the artifacts themselves what their range is. But as you can see right now, I'll put on the screen the footage of us fighting a 1v1, which doesn't really matter who's using what. You can see when Gamble is fighting my March that he is not able to cast his artifact skill unless he walks close to me. Now, this is because the range of the artifacts is not boosted by this long-range warfare season talent. So this is really the biggest downfall of this specific talent, as artifacts, even though they will provide their buff, which is marksman unit attack and legion attack and stuff like that, the effect of using it to do a lot of damage, in the case of Gold Crest, which people have done hits that go for 50,000 to 80,000 on enemy marches, as well as stunning them in place or like basically rooting them in place for a certain amount of time. This is something that does not work unless you go into range. So you can see here on the footage that every time he wants to cast an artifact, the same for Goldcrest and the same for Shadow Blades and basically any other artifact, the range is not affected at all by this long range warfare talent. So what does this mean is that if you are in a PvP battle, in a fight, you're attacking from max range, your artifact is ready, the only ones you'll be able to cast it on will be people who are close to you. So it would be maybe infantry who are in the front line, but in that case, there won't be tons of them. There'll be maybe 1 or 2 of them and they're already getting focused. And if you want to target the enemy mages and the enemy archers, who also are at max range, well, you'll have to walk into them quite closely. The only place where this would work well is if the enemy hasn't taken long range warfare, well, their archers are going to be close. They're still not going to be just close enough for you to get the full value out of something like Shadow Blades, for example. But, you know, with Goldcrest, you would be able to hit them maybe. But all in all, this feels pretty unpleasant to play as because artifacts are a huge part of the damage you deal. Even though artifact hits don't give you merit, they still hurt the enemy quite a lot. And if you want to win war, that's kind of what you need. So you are going to be sacrificing the usable ability of your artifact for the most part in most scenarios of war when you are taking long range warfare. Because if you are going to want to cast it, you're going to have to move for maybe 1, 2, 3 seconds in order to get close enough to hit the targets you want. And then you want to back off out of the range so that you don't get killed instantly. So all these seconds you're moving, you're not attacking, you're not doing damage, and people are targeting you because you're getting out of the max range bar. So this has a lot of malices. It does impact you quite heavily, but it is not the biggest deal in the world for some players who don't care as much about the artifact hits, because obviously artifacts also give you the stats, and some of them, like Rattle Spear, for example, gives, you know, bonus stats basically just for having it equipped, as you can apply defense penetration to enemies and stuff. So this is something to take in mind when you are taking this talent. You will be able to cast your artifacts, but you won't gain any new range on them. So you will need to go into the old archer range in order to cast them the way you are used to casting them from previous seasons. Now, the other thing that I want to touch on is, as we see here, this long range warfare talent says that they will have 15% less base physical attack. So when we are thinking about base physical attack, we usually go into our ballista factory here and you look at these T5 ballistas. The physical attack here is 452, which is pretty much a standard on most of these units, but the bonus afterwards is basically coming from all of the bonuses you get in the game, whether it's from tech or from the skin and stuff like that. So this shows you that this is your base physical. So people were assuming that you would get, for example, 15% less of this physical attack, which would then mean that all the buffs that are adding on top of it would reduce the bonus that you get. So for example, my bonus is plus 669 right now, which let's say is a 150 or 140% of my base physical. So if my base physical were to go down by 15%, well then 150% of that would end up affecting that my bonuses is worth a lot less. 150 will give you less because the base that it multiplies off is lower. In any case, this is not how it works. So it's a bit weird, as you would think this is how it works. And as we saw earlier, if you look at the ballistas page after and before, there is no difference. It doesn't change anything in here because you are not out in the field. But when we come here and take a look at the report, I will show you exactly what we did before and after. So this is a 1v1 between my Chimera Freygar versus his Syndrian Freygar. Now our tech are different. He is much stronger than me, but this is really just to test the difference before and after. It doesn't really matter if nothing else changed, no data changed, we had no pets and no artifact, and we had the exact same amount of troops every time. So this is the fight where we had no talent on the march, so he did not have the long range warfare, and then the exact same fight with him having long range warfare. So when you look at it comparatively, obviously I did take quite a lot less severely wounded. I have about 5,000 to 4,000 less severely wounded, and our troop remainings are pretty close, pretty much the same, and his severely wounded is a little bit worse because obviously he's a bit weaker, which I'm making a bit more damage. So all of that is, pretty standard. It is obviously hard to get a full comparison here because of the difference in power that we have, but you do see a pretty significant difference. And the next report I'm going to show you is even better for that. But what I want to show you here is that when you look at the Legion buff of after, when he had taken the talent, well, there is no difference. It is still 122% with 15 damage dealt. Actually, none of these stats change in the least way at all. There is not a single percentage of change in this troop buff. Everything else is the exact same, and we can see right here that it is 122.2, and there is absolutely nothing different in here. So this kind of is weird because you would expect that the physical attack is where you lose the 15%. Sadly, that is not how it works. So let's look at the battle log here, for example. This is obviously complex, and there is things that in this game they show us, but it is not exactly how it works. So this is obviously to take with a bit of a grain of salt, but it just gives you an idea so that you can make an informed decision. Now we'll look at the enemy march here. This is a battle report with the one I just showed you, and you can see that he has all these buffs. So 15% defense, Legion, marksman unit HP, marksman unit attack. So these are numbers, and if you look at the video, you can scroll back and forth. You will see the difference between this report and this report, which is again the exact same. Now the one difference you can see here is Legion attack minus 15%. So this is it. This is long range warfare. I've looked at every single report after he had taken the talent, and this is the same everywhere. He gets minus 15 Legion attack here, and that's it. So it is not your base attack. It is not anything. It's really just your army, your troops are getting a debuff that is 15% less attack. So is this exactly how it works? I don't know. This is what it shows us. The game shows us this data. I don't know what the calculations going on behind the scene because the game doesn't really tell us more than this. But this is literally like having a skin that gives you 15% less attack. It is not the base number that gets reduced according to this. It is just a debuff of 15% attack, and that's it. Now, in some ways, that's better because your base attack is not reduced so that everything else after boosting it is less powerful. But in other case, it means that everything, every buff, everything you get, then you reduce by 15%. So in the end, it ends up being pretty much equivalent because it's still, you just lose 15% of your attack on that march. But it is not exactly what the title says because it says physical base attack, and this is just Legion attack, so it's a little bit different. In any case, this is how it is. Obviously, as more testing goes on and as clarification from the devs, maybe we'll have a different strategy in the future. Maybe they'll tell us a little bit of things that are different than what it looks like, but so far this is what I can tell. This is what it happens. And even to kind of like negate this, you can see that over the turns, the Legion attack is there every turn, of course, because that's forever. But eventually it does disappear, and then he has plus 5%. And this happens because of Forest Shadow, which is when Syndrian, you know, he does all these things. 3 seconds after the battle begins, he gains 20% attack, lasting until the battle ends. So long range warfare basically gets cancelled by Forest Shadow, and then you have plus 5% attack the next turn. Like it goes from minus 15 to plus 5 because he gains 20% attack, which negates the minus 15 and adds him 5. And then basically every turn after that, you can see he just has this plus 5% attack. This is kind of how it goes. And then it is just that. It just completely is negated by Syndrian's ability. And it is becoming that you are just getting 15% less of that attack buff. So it's a bit weird. In some case, I think that's better because attack is one of those things that you get from a lot of sources, including your artifact, which gives like, I think like 60 attack percentage, which is huge. So there is a diminishing return. This is why also people say HP is a better stat in general when you can find it. And basically meaning that you are removing attack, which you have so much of that the diminishing return is not so massive. So all in all, I do think that long-range warfare is a lot better than people were thinking in terms of how much it nerfs your damage and your archer march. But it's really the artifact. You're not going to be casting an artifact skill in this situation, so you are going to be suffering from the fact that you are not using the potential of your artifact, which is hundreds of thousands of damage on enemy troops over a battle, as especially with T5, with Shadow Blades or Gold Crest, they're hitting for so much or for so many targets. So this is what it is. Now, here is the next report, which is my Lilia Velen against his Syndrian Freygar, which obviously is going to be a losing battle because he's much stronger than me, as well as it is a counter. But the difference here is going to be interesting to notice, as I have 20,000 severely wounded versus about 7,000 on his end, and my remaining is 64,000, and his is 155. Now, if we look at this one, which is 63,898, so I basically ended the combat at the exact same moment of troops left, and the difference is that he has a lot less remaining troops, so about 13,000 less remaining troop in this situation, meaning that I did quite a lot more damage to him. And my severely wounded went from 20,600 to 17,000. So basically almost 4,000 less severely wounded for me inflicting the exact same amount of damage to him. Again, this is obviously affected by some RNG to some point, but in this situation, we fought for the exact same amount of time, and it is the exact same march with the exact same buffs. There is no difference in terms of the troops and everything. As you can see here, this is the same stats as he had earlier, and then this report right here is the one where he had his Legion warfare, long-range warfare, and there is nothing different. It's the same everything, at least it should be, because there is nothing else we did. We literally just fought for the next 20 minutes and did no other thing in the game. So on screen, you can see how I am basically fighting him and the white numbers and everything. So you have a better idea of exactly what it looks like on the field. But it is a significant difference, I would say, in terms of how much damage he did to my mage compared to before. And of course, it will be different in the future. But this is obviously, he's using T4 archers, but he has T5 tech. He has almost 20 million power on me. So he's much stronger than me, and the difference is quite noticeable here as I am taking a lot less severely wounded. So as you can see, there is a significant difference. It does nerf the march, but it's not a massive nerf either. It will still make Sindri and Freygar attack from far away at a very decent numbers and make it so that they don't have to be in close range and getting attacked. So my thoughts is really that you are going to lose out on a lot of damage using your artifacts. There are situations where you're going to be able to use them because people are going to be closer to you than the range you're attacking, so you will be able to use it. But in most situations, people are trying to stay at max range, and as soon as they get targeted, they move away. So in that meta, that artifact is not going to ever be useful, and you are losing out on a lot. Now, on top of that, you are also losing out on some damage that you would gain before, and any counter-attack march becomes almost completely gimp, because counter-attacking is obviously really affected by this debuff, but also counter-attacking from max range, people are not going to target you. Like if you have Kinara and Host, they're not going to target that much. They're going to target the Syndrian, they're going to target the mages, which they should be doing because mages are still the #1 threat in a battle fight with AoE. So counter-attack march kind of get completely screwed by this long-range warfare talent. You gain absolutely nothing there. So you can make your own decision here based on what you're seeing. Are you going to be interested in long-range warfare or not? This is going to be something you'll have to decide for yourself. I've shown you everything that I can in order to make that decision. I personally will not be taking it because I'm obviously not an archer main, but also I personally don't think the trade-off of losing so much of your artifact is really worth it. And it is going to be worth it for one march, I think, Sindri and Freygar. And if that is your main march and you're going to be running around with that one march, sure, you're going to do great. It's going to be doing more than it used to do. But any other march which has Hosk and Kinara is not going to be doing any better. Might not be doing much worse than before, but it's not going to be doing better either, in my opinion. It's going to be pretty equivalent. And then any other march you have on the field, so mages, example, are not going to be as good because you are missing out on 10% hero skill damage and 5 range per second. So this is a lot of buff as well from the Arcane Torrent. So it depends. If you're running 3 archer marches and you are going to be having a lot of fun from max range with 2 mage marches in there, let's say, well, you're going to be doing good. You're going to have a good time. If you are only running 1 archer mage and then 2 mage marches, well, I don't know if that's really that worth it, to be honest. The damage loss on the artifact and, you know, just the general damage loss as well. I don't know if that's equivalent to gaining 10% hero skill damage on all the AoE this game has to offer. So this is something that you have to decide for yourself. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you've done any testing and you found some extra results, make sure to share as well in the comments because we can then show the community. And yeah, let me know what you think, what you're doing with your march. And of course, remember, you can reset these once per season, so you can get it, do some tests, and when war starts, you can switch back. Just make sure not to reset, you know, too early or too late, as you will only be able to do it once every 40 days, which means pretty much 1 per season. So don't mess it up. If you don't like this talent and you respect into it, well, you're going to be stuck with it until the end. So, you know, this is something you have to take in mind. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next video.